Cowboys Nation, let me tell you something right out of the gate. A lot of the noise you hear around this team is not about truth. It is about reaction. It is about somebody tossing out a hot take, calling it league insight, and then watching everybody in the fan base spend the next hour arguing over it like it came down from the football heavens on stone tablets. That is what makes this stuff tricky. The word anonymous gets thrown around, and suddenly people act like that means the opinion is automatically smarter than the one you are hearing from somebody who actually watches this team every week. I am not saying every outside opinion is wrong. I am saying you have to know when somebody is trying to inform you and when somebody is trying to stir you up. And when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, stirring people up is practically a cottage industry. Every move gets judged through a different lens than everybody else. If the Cowboys are quiet, they are criticized for being passive. If they are active, they are criticized for being reckless. If they make a real effort to improve, people say it is not enough. If they do not make a move, people say they are stuck in the mud. That is the game. So when an anonymous executive starts talking like Dallas is just spinning its wheels, you have to step back and ask a simple question. Is that a real football evaluation, or is that just another convenient shot at a franchise that always gets the biggest spotlight? And I think that matters. Because Cowboys fans know this team has had years where the front office barely moved the needle. Years where you could look at the roster, look at the departures, and feel like the answers were either slow or non-existent. That is not what everybody wants to admit, but it is part of the truth. So when people act like every criticism is automatically a fair and balanced breakdown, I am not buying it. You have to compare the words to the actual moves. You have to look at the roster changes, the extensions, the additions, the structure of the plan, and then decide whether the criticism is rooted in reality or in old narratives that just refuse to die. Now here is where I want you to lock in with me, because this is where the conversation starts getting interesting. If you are hearing the Cowboys are stuck in neutral, are you actually buying that? Or are you looking at the bigger picture and thinking Dallas is at least pushing forward instead of standing still? Drop your answer in the comments, yes or no, because I want to know where you stand on this one. And while you are down there, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because Cowboys Nation is trying to push this channel to 17,000, and every single person who joins this huddle matters. If you have been rocking with the channel, hit the like button too, and if you really want to fuel the grind, a super thanks goes a long way. Because the next part of this story is where the real pressure starts to show. Once you get past the anonymous talk and the easy criticism, you have to look at what Dallas has actually done, what it means, and whether the pieces are moving in the right direction. And that is where this whole thing gets a lot more serious. C. If you take a step back and really compare this offseason to what Cowboys Nation has lived through in the past, the difference starts to stand out more than people want to admit. There were years where Dallas lost real contributors and replaced them with hope and crossed fingers. You remember those seasons. Big names walked out the door, and instead of matching that production, the plan was to trust internal growth and maybe a low-risk signing or two. That was the formula, and more often than not, it left you feeling like the team had taken a step back before the season even started. This time, though, it feels different. Not perfect, not flawless, but active. There is movement. There is intent. There is a front office that looks like it. Understands standing still is no longer an option in a conference that keeps getting more aggressive every single year. And that is where the disconnect comes in. Because while fans are starting to see those changes, the outside noise is still stuck in the past, talking about Dallas like nothing has changed. Think about it. The narrative used to be that the Cowboys would sit on their hands while other teams loaded up. Now, they are making moves, adjusting the roster, and at least attempting to fill gaps instead of ignoring them. Does that mean they have solved everything? No. But it does mean the approach has shifted, and that shift matters more than people are giving it credit for. Because in the NFL, momentum is not just about what happens on Sundays. It is about how your roster evolves in the months leading up to it. And here is where I want your honest take, because this is about the Cowboys are not done, not even close. What they have done so far is just part of the setup. The real impact could still be coming, whether that is through the draft or another move that nobody sees coming yet. And if that happens, all of a sudden the same people who said Dallas was spinning its wheels are going to have to adjust that take real quick. So before we even get into the biggest name tied to this conversation, you have to understand the foundation. This is not the same passive offseason Cowboys Nation used to complain about. This is a team that is at least trying to position itself better. And in today's NFL, that matters more than ever. And that brings us to the name that is sitting right in the middle of all this noise, the one that has people arguing, questioning, and trying to figure out what the Cowboys are really going to do next. Because once you start talking about George Pickens, this conversation goes from strategy to pressure real fast. Now, this is where everything starts heating up, because once you bring George Pickens into the conversation, you are no longer just talking about effort or direction. You are talking about commitment. You are talking about money. And most importantly, you are talking about whether the Cowboys are ready to go all in on building something dangerous on offense. The first thing we need to clear up, and this is where a lot of fans get tripped up, is the money conversation. You keep hearing people throw out numbers like, you can't pay 2 receivers $35 million a year. It sounds heavy. It sounds impossible. It sounds like something that would cripple a team. But that is not how NFL contracts actually work. That is headline math, not real football math. Because when you break it down, the cap hits tell a completely different story. You can structure deals in a way that the real impact in the early years is nowhere near those big average numbers. We have already seen it. Big contracts get spread out, adjusted, and shaped to fit the team's window. So when people say you cannot afford both, what they are really saying is they are looking at the surface and ignoring how these deals are actually built behind the scenes. And that is why this whole George Pickens situation is so interesting. Because this is not just about whether he is talented enough. That part is already answered. This is about timing. This is about whether you lock him in early and get ahead of the market, or whether you wait and risk that price climbing even higher later on. We have seen how that plays out across the league. The earlier you act, the better it looks down the road. So let me ask you straight up, because this is where Cowboys Nation really needs to speak. If you had the choice right now, are you extending George Pickens today, or are you waiting it out? Drop it in the comments. Extend now or wait. There is no middle ground on this one. Now here is where it gets even more layered. There are people out there already floating the idea of trading him, saying his value might never be higher, saying maybe you flip him, avoid the contract headache, and bring in more assets. On paper, that sounds like a clean move. No drama, no big payday, no long-term risk. But this is the Dallas Cowboys we are talking about, and nothing about this team is ever that simple, because Jerry Jones does not run from the spotlight. If anything, he walks straight into it. He understands that this league is not just about winning games, it is about owning the conversation. And a player like George Pickens with talent and personality fits right into that world. That kind of move, keeping him and making it work, that is the kind of statement that says you are not just trying to compete, you are trying to dominate the narrative too. And let's be real about something else. If you build this offense the right way, if you pair elite talent together and structure it smartly, you are not creating a problem. You are creating pressure for every defense that lines up against you. That is what the top teams do. They do not shy away from talent because it is expensive. They figure out how to make it fit. Now here is where I want you to lean in one more time. What is the best move for this team? Keep him and extend him. Trade him while his value is high, or ride it out and deal with it later. I want to see all 3 options in the comments, because this right here could shape the entire direction of the Cowboys offense. And if you are still rocking with the channel, this is that locker room moment. This is where Cowboys Nation shows up. hit that like button because it tells the algorithm this conversation matters. If you want to go even further and support the grind, drop a super thanks and be part of what keeps this engine running. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. We are pushing towards 17,000, and every single voice in this fan base makes this thing stronger. Because everything we just talked about leads directly into what comes next. The draft is getting closer, the roster is still evolving, and the decisions Dallas makes from here are going to decide whether this offseason is remembered as progress or just another what if. And that is really what all of this comes down to, Cowboys Nation. Not just the noise, not just the takes, not even just the George Pickens situation. It is about what happens next. Because this team is not finished building, not even close. The draft is right around the corner, and that is where things can shift fast. This is where smart teams separate themselves. You already have the foundation of an offseason that shows more intent than what we have seen in the past, but now comes the part where you either stack that progress or you stall out. Those first-round picks, the flexibility, the decisions still on the table, that is where the Cowboys can turn a decent offseason into one that actually puts the rest of the league on notice. And here is the part a lot of people overlook. Momentum in the NFL is fragile. You can build it in the offseason, but you have to keep feeding it. You cannot start strong and then hesitate when it matters most. If the Cowboys stay aggressive, stay calculated, and keep adding the right pieces, then everything we talked about earlier starts to come together. The criticism fades, the narrative changes, and suddenly this is a team people have to take seriously again. But if they hesitate, if they play it safe when the opportunity is right in front of them, then those same old conversations come right back. That is why this stretch matters so much. It is not just about adding players. It is about sending a message. Are you building something real, or are you just hovering in the middle again? So let me ask you one last time, and this is the question that ties everything together. Do you believe the Cowboys are moving in the right direction right now? Yes or no? Drop it in the comments, because this is where Cowboys Nation gets to speak loud and clear. And if you have made it this far, you are part of the core of this channel. This is that locker room talk moment. This is where we lock in together. Hit that like button if you believe in where this team is headed. If you are riding with Cowboys Nation all the way through this offseason and into the draft, make sure you are subscribed and have those notifications turned on, because we are pushing to 17,000 and we are not stopping until we get there. And if you really want to support the channel and keep this content coming every single day, drop a super thanks and be part of what fuels this grind. Every bit of support keeps this thing moving. Because at the end of the day, this is not just about headlines or opinions. It is about what this team becomes when the season kicks off. And everything happening right now, every move, every decision, every debate is building toward that moment.